Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. So Lia Thomas has spoken out in supporting an amendment of Title IX. And this whole case highlights why it's so important for the definition of a woman to be known by our lawmakers. Because this was a law that was introduced to ensure that women are not discriminated against in sports, to ensure that young girls in school are given the same opportunities as the boys, and that nobody is denied access to sports, regardless of sex. And now it's being used against the very people it was put in place to protect, because we're unsure of the definition of a woman. So let's take a look. So Title IX is from the Education Amendments Act of 1972, and it says it provides no person in the United States shall, on the basis of sex, be excluded from participation in, be denied the benefits of, or subjected to discrimination under any education program or activity receiving federal financial assistance. So that's basically saying you can't be discriminated on the basis of sex. But now we have genders. Apparently, sex and gender are not synonymous anymore. So we have a gender that has been put on some sort of spectrum, some so-called spectrum. We now have people asserting that there are more than two genders. So this law is open to interpretation now, since we have this new gender ideology that has crept in, since we have people that say they identify as being a woman, biological males identifying as women, and now they're claiming that they're being prevented from participating in sports, when the reality is no one's preventing you from participating in sports. But sports are divided into male and female for a reason, so that one doesn't have an unfair advantage, so that women are not put in a position where they are by default excluded from achieving certain levels within sports because they have to compete against somebody who is stronger than them, who has an unfair advantage to them. For that very reason, the sexes are divided in sports, which is nothing new. It's been that way from the very beginning. And now we have our very own lawmakers and people in education refusing to say what a woman is. So we have Education Secretary Miguel Cardona refusing to define what a woman is at a House hearing. Secretary of Education Miguel Cardona dodged questions from Rep. Andrew Clyde on Tuesday when the Georgia Republican asked the Biden administration what it means to be a woman. The tense back and forth took place during a House Appropriations Committee hearing where Cardona defended proposed changes to Title IX rules that would make it illegal for schools to ban transgender athletes from playing on sports teams consistent with their gender identity. Can you please tell me, or can you please define for me, what a woman is? Clyde asked Cardona. The Biden administration official deflected the question, only answering that the focus of the Department of Education is to provide equal access to students, including students who are LGBTQ, access free from discrimination. So this administration is deliberately straddling the fence on the definition of a woman when it comes to defining the sexes, so that they can use the very laws that were put in place to protect women and apply them to biological males. That's where we're at now. I just did a video of an Arizona State Senate where one activist refused to acknowledge that men cannot have babies, to the point where she was willing to look stupid and assert that men can have babies, just so that the laws in place that are there for pregnant women could be applied to people who identify as men. Or just so that she wouldn't offend biological males who identify as women. That's why she refused to define what a woman was too in the hearing. So this is where we're at now. Very, very concerning times. It makes the laws that are in place to protect women defunct because they can be applied to biological males, even if that means those biological males are going to infringe upon the rights of females.
My name is Lia Thomas. I'm a transgender woman, a former college swimmer, and the first trans athlete to be named Division I NCAA champion. I started swimming when I was 5 years old, and it has taught me so much. has given me so many opportunities to learn, grow, develop, and connect with my peers. Opportunities that I wouldn't have gotten if I didn't have access to athletics. That's why it breaks my heart to see trans kids across the country lose out on these opportunities. The Department of Education has proposed a new rule for Title IX regarding transgender athletes. This rule would prohibit blanket bans on transgender kids, especially in grades K through 8. However, it would not prohibit discrimination against trans kids in the high school and college levels.
Levels K through 8. What transgender kids exist in kindergarten? I mean, if that's the case, that needs to be looked into, because that should not be a thing. And clearly, it doesn't matter as much as it does in high school, where the differences between male and female are more evident. After children have gone through puberty and develop their natural, capabilities as male and females, you're going to see the difference. So that's why they're protecting female athletes from having to compete against biological males. Nobody is stopping kids who identify as trans from participating in sports. The rule is that you participate in the sport according to your sex. That's it. That's the rule in sports across the board. That's nothing new. We don't have women and men in MMA fighting together, typically. There are different divisions. In athletics, there are different divisions, or track. That shouldn't change because now we have men who want to identify as women, regardless. That should not change. That's why we have categories across the board when it comes to sex and even age. A 12-year-old might not be able to compete against a 20-year-old. There's going to be an unfair advantage. So they keep everything in certain divisions so that sports is fair. It's just basic common sense.
Under the guise of competitive fairness. This rule is a good start. However,
it's not a guise. It's biological fact. If we want sports to be fair, there has to be certain divisions according to biology.
Not enough. During this time of intense anti-trans backlash, the trans community needs explicit protections from discrimination in order to live our lives freely and equally. Luckily, this rule is not final. We have a 30-day period to urge the Biden administration to amend the rule and grant equal protection for all transgender kids, because all trans kids deserve the opportunity to compete and play in the sports they love without compromising who they are. Join me in commenting on this proposed rule and demanding equal protection for all transgender athletes. All trans kids deserve the opportunity to be themselves and participate.
So this is another case of the rights of certain people, certain individuals, superseding everybody else's. That's what this is. And Riley Gaines responded by saying, under the guise of competitive fairness, are you really trying to say you would have won a national title against the men? Does it not break your heart to see women lose out on these opportunities? The Biden admin's proposed bill denies science and common sense. Exactly. Oh, it breaks Lia's heart that men who want to identify as women are going to be denied that opportunity and therefore have to compete against other men and just remain mediocre or below mediocre. But Lia has no problem with women being denied titles, being denied opportunities, because they have to compete against biological males who have an unfair advantage over them, That's just biological fact. That's not a problem. So again, they want their rights to supersede everybody else's, and everyone else's rights have to take a back seat to their so-called rights.
Well, this weekend, I spoke up for Riley Gaines in a debate on Bill Maher's HBO show Real Time, while debating a Democratic Congresswoman, Katie Porter.
We talked about people, using things to kind of get likes and get clicks.
That's not what she's doing. I've got no.
Clearly, this woman is not an athlete and never has been an athlete, because then she would understand that this is a woman who competed with Lia Thomas. She had first-hand experience and was even good enough to tie with Lia. But ultimately, Lia dominated that sport and all of those events at every level, and was on course to break in the record of Olympic swimmers, ruining the record of female athletes. So this woman don't know what she's talking about. Clicks and likes. She's on the show and doing what she's doing for clicks and likes.
No truck for Riley Gaines personally, but all I've seen her do is stand up for women's rights and fairness and equality.
But
She actually competed against Lia Thomas, and it was obviously unfair. Lia Thomas won one of the races in the NCAA championships by 50 seconds against a bunch of biological females who simply couldn't keep up. That cannot be right. It cannot be fair.
That is something that I think our sporting bodies should be dealing with. And by the way, Riley is speaking up for herself, and that is her prerogative, and I respect her free speech.
I think she's speaking up for pretty much every female athlete in the world. Now, that debate was astonishing on several levels. Firstly, that it fell to me and Bill Maher to defend women's rights against a woman arguing against them. And secondly, that the audience, packed with liberal Californians, a pretty woke crowd normally, were watching a famous liberal comedian and sided overwhelmingly with Bill and me defending Riley Gaines and women's rights to fairness. So I'm joined now by Riley Gaines. So Riley, great to see you. I don't know whether you got a chance to actually watch what went down on the Bill Maher show, but it was fascinating to see the audience reaction, because they completely agreed with me when I defended you and did not agree with the woman in the room.
Absolutely. When I watched this back, you just can't help but laugh. Just like you mentioned, it's ironic. It's always women fighting against women's sex-protected spaces and rights. It blows my mind, but I so appreciate both you and Bill standing up for myself, because you hit the nail on the head. I'm speaking for every female athlete, not just myself. I'm done competing. This isn't about me, but I know it's at stake if someone doesn't use their voice. I have a younger sister. I just got married. I can only hope one day that I have a daughter, and I can't imagine being in this position and not fighting for them. But also I'm fighting for the present female athletes, Lia Thomas's teammates even, who have their voices suppressed. They see what happens to me when I go to San Francisco State, and they don't want to put themselves in a position where speaking out would garner that for them.
Right.
So it's a lot bigger than just myself. And to see Representative Katie Porter even say that, it clearly shows she knows nothing about what I've been doing this past year. Nothing has been for personal advancement. Nothing has been for monetary value for me. I was supposed to be in dental school this year. So by no means did I even feel equipped to do what I'm doing. This is not about me. And hearing her say that showed her true ignorance.
Yeah, I completely.
Absolute ignorance. You know that she's never competed in any sports in her life for her to say that. And I wonder if she has daughters, because when her daughter comes home crying, saying that they came second to a biological male, and, if it wasn't for that person, they would have been the winner. If her daughter comes home crying in that position, I think she would take a different stance. This isn't about pretending, dumbing yourself down and ignoring science, ignoring biology to score political points. Just like she accused Riley of trying to get clicks and likes, that woman is trying to score political points, and she's dumbing herself down. That's why the audience, agreed with Piers and Bill, because it's common sense.
Yeah, I completely agree. And in fact, Lia Thomas today tweeted the following: "It breaks my heart to see trans kids across the country lose out on these opportunities. During the time of anti-trans backlash, the trans community needs explicit protections from discrimination in order to live our lives free and equally. All trans kids deserve the opportunity to compete and play in the sports they love without compromising who they are." Now, my problem with that, and I think you picked up on this as well in your response to Lia Thomas, is, well, what about fairness and equality for the women, for biological females? Because clearly what Lia Thomas, a 6'4" biological male who did not compete successfully against men, but is now demolishing women in national championships, clearly that is unfair. Now, I want trans athletes to have fairness and equality. I want them to be able to play sport, but not at the expense of women's rights.
And, that reeks of narcissism, where only your rights matter and your desires must supersede everybody else's. To hell with how it affects other people. That doesn't matter. It's only about how it affects you and the people you care about or your community. That's what that reeks of.
Exactly. The first sentence you said, I believe it was, Lia Thomas quoted saying, it breaks my heart to see trans kids lose out on opportunities. You're exactly right. Replace that with the word woman. Does it still break Thomas's heart to see women lose out on opportunities? Because that's exactly what's happening. From my experience competing against Lia Thomas at the national championships, I watched firsthand women lose out on opportunities. I watched women not become All-Americans, missing that 8th and 16th place by 1 place because they were displaced by a male. This, of course, goes against everything that Title IX was created to protect, and now we have the Biden administration, the people in the White House who are actively working to rewrite Title IX.
And Title IX, for those who don't know, originated in the 70s, was designed to bring equality and fairness, irrespective of gender, to schools and education, and in particular to school sport. And clearly that is now not happening. And the Biden administration are effectively endorsing this unfairness.
Absolutely. That's exactly what they're doing. Title IX is a civil federal rights law that ensures women essentially have the same opportunities as men, whether that be athletically, academically, the same amount of scholarships. We saw women fight for this in the 70s. We saw someone as amazing as Billie Jean King, Megan Rapinoe. These are feminists who fought for women's rights. But now both of these women, along with the Biden administration, they're actively working to undermine everything they once fought for.
Well, Megan Rapinoe was out there tweeting away that, this is all fantastic, and of course trans athletes should be doing this. And I made the point, how would she have felt if she'd lost her place in a national women's soccer team, which was obviously they were world champions, to a trans athlete who was 5 inches taller, stronger, faster, and much better at football, but who had been unsuccessful playing in a men's team? How would she have felt then?
How ridiculous that so-called feminists who were athletes are for this. They've lost their minds. That's the only conclusion I can come to. How is this progressive? How is this advancing women? How is this advancing women's sports? It's going to make women's sports defunct and meaningless. That's it. And don't tell me that this isn't going to attract more mediocre men who know that this will open the door for them, especially at a college level where there's scholarships at stake. It blows my mind that so-called feminists are for this. Are they okay with male genitalia in their locker rooms too? In our daughters' locker rooms? Are they okay with that too? Because we know about Lia and the fetishes.
Well, if you've ever seen Megan Rapinoe play, she's a very tough, aggressive player. So I can tell you exactly what I think she would have done. I think she genuinely would have shivved someone who tried to take her spot, a male who tried to take her spot. And I think it's worth mentioning that she's done playing. She has nothing to lose. She doesn't have a daughter to defend. So for her, what to lose by almost virtue signaling? That's
what it's about. They care more about scoring political points, making a name for themselves, getting a pat on the back by the radical left than they do what's right. It doesn't affect them anymore. They don't have to compete against males. They've got their success. They've made their name in sports. But don't care about the young girls coming behind them. All they care about is their politics and their virtual signaling. It's disgusting. It really is.
By coming off as kind and inclusive and welcoming and accepting and tolerant and loving and all of the things. But in reality, it's not kind to ask a girl to share a locker room with a man who's fully equipped with and exposing male parts. And it's not inclusive to ask a woman to smile and step aside on the podium so a man can take her trophy and take her spot in her honors.
Yeah, I just find this whole debate completely baffling.
It's asinine.
Like every woman in the world wouldn't join together and say this is outrageous.
It's completely asinine. That's what it is.
And it's the treachery from women like the Democrat Congresswoman Katie Porter, like Megan Rapinoe, like these others who should be doing a lot better than they are. But you know what? A lot of women are scared. They're scared to do what you've done. You went to San Francisco State University and, you were in fear of your life with that mob. And it was terrifying.
Absolutely. It sure was. I was essentially, I know you saw the video, but I was physically assaulted and I was held for ransom for 3 hours. These people who barricaded me in this room, they were demanding money if I wanted to make it home safely. which then the dean of students was actually negotiating with them. It's like, well, you know, why are we negotiating my safe passage home? This is crazy. But you're exactly right. These girls, they're terrified. They're scared. Parents are even scared. They don't want to lose their job. Coaches, athletic directors, no one wants to be in a position where you ruffle feathers or step on toes, but that's what it's going to take. It's going to take sacrifices. It's going to take girls not willing to get up on that starting block, not jump when the gun blows. We need people who are willing to take that next step. And I know it's unfortunate that it's come to this circumstances to have to make change, but that's what it's going to take.
Girls are going to have to refuse to compete with these males. Absolutely outright refuse. Even protest by your refusal to compete. Basically, even show up to the event. And like she said, when that pistol goes off, you stand there in solidarity and say, we're not doing it. Let the trans person compete in their own race by themselves. People are surprised when men speak out about this, but really it's very, very necessary. And it's their people who are doing this. So they should speak out about this. This is males, biological males, men. I don't know why I keep saying that. This is men who are doing this. So again, you know, God bless Riley, and she's just doing such a great job. And I'm so glad to hear about, you know, Piers, Bill Maher speaking out about this, and, you know, other men too. So that's the way forward. And this administration needs to see that we're not going to accept this nonsense. They're doing it because they want to be the administration that pushes this agenda. They want to be known for that. And, you know, it's all to gain power. It's all to divide people. I mean, I could go on about that. So thanks for watching. Let me know what you think. Share your thoughts below. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next video.